Aloha, this is Joshua Bowles with Lyric Woodwork and Snake Road Sawmill. My father introduced me to Japanese woodworking. He's a luthier, and he introduced me to the tools and some of the practices. And ever since then, it's been really a passion of mine. There's a book that really got me excited about it. It has a lot of photographs of the Issei Shrine. And there's a simplicity and an elegance and a beauty that I just find it's unsurpassed. I mean, I would say we use hand tools here at the shop probably 10% of the time. So it's not a dominant part of it, but the principles are ones that I feel like we use every day. Well, and there's so many great stories around it as well. One of my favorites is that after the samurai were disbanded, there were a lot of metal workers and weapons makers who were out of a job. And so they shifted to woodworking tools. And so that's why the finest hand planes, saws, and chisels come from Japan. Their knowledge of steel and the techniques that they have to make these tools are really unsurpassed. One of those principles is to work with the wood. You have an idea and you are imposing your will, but it's like you're working with the wood. It's a partnership. And one of the things that exemplifies that to me is the Japanese handsaw. So these handsaws have two different sets of teeth. On this side are the finer teeth, which are used for cross-cutting. So as you're cutting across the piece. And the other set of teeth are coarser, and those are for ripping, cutting alongside of it. So when I say working with the wood, and what you're doing is you're really trying to align your shoulder, your elbow, your wrist, and then you're pulling. So these are also often called pole saws. And the distinction between a Western saw, where you cut when you push, and it's really brilliant because you can imagine if you're, say, pushing the saw across, anyone who's used a Western handsaw knows that the blade, you can master and you can get better at it, but you're expending quite a bit of effort. And also because with a Western saw, you're pushing, the blade has to be thicker, and so you're using more effort. With the Japanese saw, because you're pulling, and with all three of those parts of your anatomy aligned, you're pulling, and so it can have a very thin kerf, which makes sawing much easier. So we do use the hand saws, and we always have a variety of them. My first Japanese woodworking project was some shoji screens, and there's specialized saws and chisels to go along with that. This is a small saw. It's made for when you're beginning the cut in the center of the board. And so we would use these on our shoji screens. Now, a lot of these tools are also made for Japanese woods. So cedars and pines, conifers, and a lot of softer woods. Whereas here in Hawaii, it's tropical hardwoods. We find that the planes work best, especially on a wood like Port Orford cedar, where there's a straight grain and there's not too many knots. So we primarily use the Japanese hand planes when we're doing chamfering. And for that, it's very satisfying. See those shavings curl and come off very easily. We also use Japanese chisels, and the steel with these is excellent in being hard but not brittle. And so the Japanese have really mastered steel for tool making. One of the principles that we think about every day with every piece of furniture is an idea that I learned from a Japanese woodworker who I apprenticed with back in Texas. And that is, say you're making a table leg or a dining room table base, you always want to orient the wood in the same way that the tree was growing. As in, there's something that just feels wrong about it when you have a piece of wood where in the furniture, it's growing with the tip down, the opposite of how the tree was growing. And so with a piece like this, it would just feel wrong to have it in that orientation. Now that feels right. This is a project that we have in the shop right now where we're employing some of these tools and these techniques. We have a Japanese client who has ordered some floor chairs. So it's got a broader seat, and then we'll have just a couple of small, low feet, and then an elegant back. And then we'll be building a small, low table for them as well. One of the ideas that we think about a lot here too is that what you get when you plane the wood as opposed to sanding it, when you plane, it cuts the fibers of the wood, and in some sense actually seals the wood so that if it's going to be outdoors, it's more resistant to weather. Whereas you can imagine you're sanding the wood and it's kind of breaking the fibers. And that's why you really have to put a finish on it, a more protective finish. A lot of the traditional temples in Japan, that's the only finish, is planing, cutting the fibers, as well as beeswax. And one of the things that I also think about, this idea in Japanese woodworking, that as a woodworker, you have a duty. You have a duty to your community, to the place where you are, to make beautiful things. And so it's not an ego-based exercise where you're trying to make these perfect dovetails showing how good you can do. What you're really trying to do is honor the wood, fulfill your duty as a craftsperson, and make beautiful things. But you make lots of them. So you work to the utmost of your ability, but you also work rapidly and efficiently. This column that we made here in our shop really kind of exemplifies some of these ideas, in that we've planed it, there's no finish, just the planing, and it's really all about the beauty of the wood. And our job was to show that and then to get out of the way as much as possible. If you'd like to learn more about Japanese woodworking or some of the tools, we actually teach classes. So please feel free to stop by and visit us, and please subscribe to our channel.